Imagine trying to build like a really complex piece of machinery without an instruction manual.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Right. And you're doing it in the pitch black. And the ground is, actively shaking under your feet.
Yeah, that's just a recipe for a breakdown.
Exactly. But that is essentially what it feels like to try to enforce personal spiritual growth through just sheer willpower alone.
It is exhausting.
So exhausting and usually just doesn't work. But what if there was an actual mechanical architecture to it?
A blueprint.
Yes, a blueprint. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we were looking at a really profound piece of source material, essentially a sermon that breaks down the actual gears and levers of spiritual maturity.
And we're so glad you're here with us for this.
We really are. We're going on a mission today to extract the 5 key principles presented in this text to help you understand not just what they are, but how they actually fundamentally rewire us.
And it is a fascinating text because it takes something notoriously abstract and, well, subjective like spiritual maturity and makes it highly tangible.
Right.
It gives us a functioning blueprint, like you said.
Exactly. And the text does something really crucial right at the very beginning. It completely redefines the topic.
It sets the record straight.
It really does. It makes it very clear that spiritual growth is not just accumulating religious knowledge.
Right, like you're cramming for a theology exam or something.
Yes. It's not about memorizing ancient trivia. And it is certainly not about putting on this superficial display of piety just to look good in front of your neighbors.
The performance aspect.
Exactly, the performance. The source describes it instead as a fundamental transformational process.
A total shift.
Right. It is about actively becoming closer to the Lord and fundamentally changing your very nature to become more Christ-like.
Which, I mean, is a pretty daunting prospect.
It really is.
Total personal transformation usually is. You hear that, and your brain immediately thinks, I don't even know where to begin.
Right, like where's step 1?
But the source provides a very comforting setup right out of the gate. It assures us that we aren't expected to undergo this massive transformation in total isolation.
Oh, that's a relief.
Yeah, you aren't just dropped alone in the woods to figure it out by yourself.
Thank goodness.
The text asserts that we are actively nurtured and guided along this path, specifically through a set of daily practices.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to undergo any kind of transformation, you first need a connection to the source of that change.
You need a tether.
Yes, a tether. So the first principle the source outlines is establishing that relationship with God through constant prayer and revelation.
The word constant is really the operative one there.
Oh, for sure.
The text actually illustrates this with a really beautiful, quiet story. It talks about a father who had this specific morning routine.
Right.
Every day he would go into his sleeping son's room, gently pull the blanket up over him, and just offer a prayer.
Wow. It's a striking visual, but I think a lot of us hear morning routine and immediately think of checking a box.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like brushing your teeth or making the bed.
Right, and the source emphasizes that this wasn't just some mindless habit.
It wasn't just rote repetition.
Exactly. In that quiet moment, it was a profound expression of faith, like a literal plea for blessings and guidance for his child.
That's beautiful.
It was a moment of deep, intentional connection. It wasn't about the length of the prayer or using really eloquent words.
Right, no grand speeches.
No, it was just about the orientation of his heart toward God in that specific vulnerable moment.
And connection inherently goes 2 ways.
It has to.
The source makes a huge point of saying that prayer has to be listening time, not just talking time.
That's such a great way to phrase it.
Isn't it? There's this incredible anecdote in the text about a sister who suddenly felt this intense, undeniable prompting to go visit a friend.
A friend she hadn't seen in a while, right?
Exactly. Someone she hadn't seen in years. So she follows that impulse. She just goes.
Ow.
And she finds that on that exact day, that specific friend was sitting there completely overwhelmed by deep sorrow.
See, that anecdote is vital because it proves the text's premise. The guidance is actively broadcasting, but you have to be tuned to the right frequency to actually hear it.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You have to cultivate the stillness required to actually listen.
Yeah, it's like shifting your mindset from seeing prayer as this formal, scheduled press conference.
Where you step up to a podium, read your requests, and walk away.
Yes. Treating it instead like an ongoing text message thread with a close friend throughout the entire day.
That perfectly describes what the source calls mini prayers.
Yeah, mini prayers.
Just these short, silent prayers while you're driving to work or while you're folding laundry.
Or when you hit a really frustrating roadblock in your day.
Exactly. It's about maintaining that open channel constantly.
But wait, I have to ask. Because if we are just shooting off mini prayers every time we hit a traffic jam or misplace our car keys,
Right.
doesn't that risk treating God like a spiritual vending machine?
That is such a good point.
Like, how does the text differentiate between maintaining a genuine connection and just constantly asking for minor favors to make our lives easier?
That's a brilliant distinction to make. And the text isn't suggesting you use many prayers to, like, micromanage the universe to your liking.
Okay, good.
It's really about orientation.
Yeah.
When you offer a silent prayer in a moment of frustration like sitting in gridlock, you are actively choosing to tether your mind to something higher.
Rather than just spiraling into anger or anxiety.
Exactly. It's an acknowledgement of dependence and a request for perspective, not just a transactional demand for clear traffic.
That makes so much sense.
It just keeps the two-way radio turned on and receptive.
Which naturally brings us to the next hurdle. Because once that two-way radio is open and you start actually receiving that guidance...
Like the prompting to visit the old friend.
Right, you have to actually do something about it. The guidance demands movement.
Precisely. The connection isn't just for your own personal comfort. It's a catalyst.
And this brings us to the second principle in the text, right?
Yes. Faith through action. The text actually references the book of James here. Faith without works is dead.
Meaning, faith cannot just be this warm, fuzzy feeling that lives comfortably in your chest.
It has to materialize in the real world.
What's fascinating here is the way the source frames it. Faith is not just a passive state of mind.
It's more like a structural load-bearing beam.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right, you can look at a beam all day and believe it's strong. You can even write essays about how strong it is.
But until you actually put weight on it...
Until you build a house on top of it, you don't truly know if it can hold. The action is the stress test.
It's the resistance that makes the muscle grow.
Exactly.
The source gives a couple of examples of this resistance. One is about a person who was praying about whether or not to buy a 60-year-old property.
Pretty big decision.
Yeah, they felt guided to do it. They made the decision in faith. They put the weight on the beam, so to speak.
Right.
And the text notes they received great blessings. But the second story...
Oh, the story about the woman and her job.
Yes, that one. That second story really caught my attention because the stakes are just so much higher.
So much higher.
This woman was deeply conflicted about having to work on Sundays. She took it very seriously. She fasted, she prayed, and she felt a very clear prompting that she needed to resign, to literally hand in her notice.
Just quit.
Just quit. So she did. She followed that prompt, and the text says she was surprisingly provided with a completely different, better job opportunity later.
Wow.
But I want to pause on that moment of resignation because stepping into the unknown without a safety net is terrifying.
It goes against every survival instinct we have.
Exactly. What does that actually do to a person psychologically and spiritually to make that kind of leap?
Well, it creates immense friction. And that friction is the entire point of the exercise.
Really?
Think about it. When she hands in that resignation letter, she is forcefully decoupling her sense of security from her paycheck.
And attaching it entirely to her spiritual tether.
Yes. Psychologically, that triggers all of our survival alarms.
Mm.
It is a terrifying leap.
Oh, absolutely.
But spiritually, according to the text, that is the exact mechanism of growth. You cannot grow your capacity to trust God if you always have a perfectly engineered backup plan.
Wow. It's the ultimate stress test for that load-bearing beam.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the source also scales it down for us, which is helpful.
Oh, good. Because quitting your job is intense.
Very intense. Action doesn't always have to be that dramatic. It doesn't mean risking financial ruin.
Right.
It can be as small as intentionally praying for someone else or finding the courage to share a personal testimony with a friend.
Or simply taking a hard, honest look at your daily habits and choosing to change one of them.
Exactly. The scale of the action matters less than the fact that you are intentionally moving based on faith.
And when you start taking those actions, when you start flexing that faith muscle, something profound happens to your perspective.
Oh, it completely shifts.
Right. Flexing that faith muscle doesn't just change your circumstances. It literally changes your line of sight.
It forces an outward shift.
Yes. The text explains that as you act on faith, your perspective naturally begins to shift away from your own internal worries.
Because you are trusting that you're being guided?
Exactly. You stop obsessing over your own survival. You stop staring at your own shoes, and you look up.
You start looking outward at the people around you.
Which is a third principle, service and compassion.
The source argues that shifting from a self-centric worldview to an other-centric worldview is the exact mechanism that softens the human heart.
That makes a lot of sense.
It is how you cultivate actual Christ-like love.
Hmm.
When you trust that you are being sustained, you suddenly have the bandwidth to notice that the person right next to you is struggling.
And to illustrate this, the text shares a story that honestly kind of broke my heart a little bit.
The father with the soup.
Yes, it broke my heart, but in a very beautiful way. It's about this father who is really struggling financially.
Things are incredibly tight for his family.
So tight. And he decides to secretly skip his own lunches. He literally goes hungry during the workday,
Wow.
just so he can save up enough spare change to buy his wife her favorite soup.
It's a beautiful distillation of the principle. Because it's obviously not about the soup.
No, not at all.
It's about the self-sacrifice. It's true love manifesting in a very quiet, tangible deprivation of self for the sake of another.
Wait, if we are always giving up our time, or literally our lunch, isn't that a recipe for total burnout?
It's a very fair question.
I mean, if you are listening to this while juggling a career, a family, and a million obligations, this sounds exhausting. Modern psychology beats the drum of boundaries and self-care constantly.
Oh, absolutely.
If you give away everything, you end up empty, right?
It's a very modern tension. If you look at this purely through the lens of a secular transactional economy, it makes no sense at all.
Right. You give away a meal, you have fewer calories.
If you give away an hour, you have less time.
Ex-
But the source offers a completely counterintuitive wisdom here. The text explicitly states that in the very process of helping others, in the act of calling out to those in need, we ourselves find healing.
Really?
Yes, we actually gain strength.
So the math is fundamentally different.
The spiritual economy described in the text doesn't work like a bank account where giving means you have a deficit.
Okay.
It suggests that compassionate output actually generates spiritual energy.
Oh, wow.
By stepping outside of your own ego and your own anxiety to alleviate someone else's suffering, you disrupt your own stress loops.
That is profound.
You find profound meaning, and that meaning acts as a restorative force.
That makes a lot of sense, which is why the source issues a very specific and honestly highly manageable call to action.
Just one small act.
Yes, commit to doing just one small act of kindness for someone every week.
Just one.
It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be intentional.
But here is the reality check. Even with that regenerating energy of service, continually focusing outward and dealing with the heavy burdens of other people requires deep sustenance.
You cannot pour from an empty cup indefinitely.
Exactly. To sustain that kind of outward output, you need incredibly high-quality internal input.
Which perfectly explains why the text doesn't stop at service. It moves right to principle number 4, scripture study and the pursuit of truth.
This is the nourishment required to keep the whole engine running.
Right.
The text asserts that ancient scriptures contain inherent power. It quotes Nephi, an ancient prophet, who said something to the effect of, "The words of Christ will tell you all things what you should do."
Or as another translation of the text puts it, "The word of the Lord is the joy of my soul."
The point is, these texts are meant to feed the spirit in a way that regular media simply cannot.
And it isn't just about reading dusty old history books to memorize ancient geography,
Definitely not.
The source gives a great modern example. It talks about a youth, a teenager, who made a commitment to read the scriptures for just 15 minutes every single morning.
A pretty solid commitment for a teenager.
Right. And the result wasn't just that they learned ancient names and dates. This youth found that these ancient texts provided direct, actionable answers to very modern problems they were facing at school and in their relationships.
That's incredible.
But I want to dig into the how of that. How does a text written thousands of years ago solve a high school drama or a modern career crisis?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we're really talking about is using ancient texts as pattern recognition software.
Oh, I like that.
Think about it. The modern world is chaotic. It's fast, it's loud, and it is full of entirely unprecedented technological anxieties.
Very true.
But human nature hasn't changed at all.
Wow, right.
The source points out that scriptures address the deepest existential questions we have as human beings.
Like, why does this world exist at all?
Yes. Or in moments of deep suffering, why is God silent? By reading about ancient humans grappling with silence from God, or societal collapse, or interpersonal betrayal.
The listener realizes their modern anxieties aren't actually new.
Exactly. It de-escalates our modern panic by placing it in a historical framework of resilience.
It proves that people have survived this exact emotional terrain before.
Grappling with these questions through prayer and scripture study provides something vastly superior to mere academic knowledge.
It provides a structural framework for you to process the friction of everyday life.
It anchors you.
And the source gives a really practical tip here for anyone wanting to accelerate this growth. Don't just read passively.
Write it down.
Yes, write down your insights in a notebook. Force your brain to articulate what it's learning, and then take it a step further and actually share those insights with someone else.
Because the moment you begin sharing those insights, you are no longer just processing internally.
Right.
You are actively shaping your external environment.
Yes. The ultimate result of all your internal connection, your faithful action, your outward service, and your spiritual nourishment is the external environment you foster.
It all builds outward.
Exactly. Principle 5 is all about the ecosystem you create and inhabit, building healthy relationships and being a good example.
The text is very blunt about this reality. Your spiritual growth is heavily influenced by who you spend your time with.
We basically absorb the traits of our community, don't we?
Biologically and psychologically, yes. We absorb their anxieties and their values.
To highlight this, the source shares a story about a father whose defining trait was his consistent, unwavering honesty over many years.
It wasn't just one big moment.
No, it wasn't one grand, cinematic, heroic moment where he saved the day. It was the everyday, boring consistency of his integrity that eventually became a lifelong spiritual guidepost for his children.
He was what the text calls a light to his family.
And being a light doesn't require a podium.
No, not at all.
The text lists several everyday ways we can be a light to those around us. Greeting people with a genuine smile.
Expressing actual specific gratitude.
Acting sincerely.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because right after listing those very standard positive behaviors, the source throws in a detail that completely caught me off guard.
The curveball.
It explicitly includes honestly asking for help when in trouble as a core method for building sound relationships and being a light.
It completely subverts our normal expectations.
It really does. Think about that for a second. We usually think that being a good example, being a light, means having it all together.
Looking perfect.
Never showing weakness. We think we inspire people by being invulnerable.
But the text suggests that vulnerability, actually admitting you don't have all the answers and that you're struggling, is a profound way to build a healthy ecosystem.
That is wild.
Let's look at the sociology of it. Admitting weakness disarms tribal defenses in other people. Yeah, it drops the facade of competition. When you ask for help, you're allowing others to step into a caretaker role.
You're giving them the opportunity to exercise their own compassion.
Exactly. It chemically bonds a community because it replaces judgment with empathy. It builds a bridge of authentic humanity.
It literally gives them the chance to do their one small act of kindness for the week.
It is an entire interconnected system.
It is a beautifully cyclical ecosystem. So what does this all mean?
Let's trace it back.
Yes, let's trace the architecture we just mapped out because it flows perfectly. You start with the tether, the connection.
Which is constant prayer.
Treating it like an ongoing conversation rather than a vending machine. Then you activate that connection through action.
Putting weight on the load-bearing beam of faith.
Right. That action forces an outward focus, leading to true service and the generation of spiritual energy.
And to sustain that service, you need sustaining nourishment.
Anchoring yourself in the deep truths and pattern recognition of ancient scripture.
Right.
And finally, all of this internal work builds your external ecosystem, fostering healthy relationships through honesty, kindness, and the profound vulnerability to ask for help.
And as the source concludes, it offers a deeply reassuring promise.
Which we all need.
We really do. This entire architecture of spiritual growth, it is not a sudden overnight event.
No.
You don't wake up one morning completely transformed. It is built through small, daily, deliberate choices.
And the text assures us that while the work is constant, the journey itself is not a miserable slog.
Right.
It is fundamentally filled with joy and peace, with the assurance that the Lord is walking beside us through the entire process.
This raises an important question, though.
Okay.
Something for you to mull over after this deep dive is finished. If the source is right, and spiritual growth is truly built in these tiny, everyday moments.
The silent mini prayers in traffic.
The 15 minutes of reading ancient texts. The quiet choice to skip a lunch for someone else.
Right.
What if the ultimate measure of our spiritual maturity isn't how we feel during our highest, most transcendent mountaintop highs?
Oh, wow.
What if, instead, the true measure of our growth is simply how we respond in the absolute most mundane, frustrating, and ordinary friction of our daily lives?
That is exactly the kind of perspective shift that changes how you approach tomorrow morning.
It really is.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep leaning into the learning, keep asking the big questions, and we will catch you on the next one.